Hello friends, thank you for taking the time to listen to this message. If you are listening to me, it is probably because we share a common heritage. You might have attended Queen's College, MGHS, St. Anne's, Queen's School, or conversely, Government College Ibadan, St. Gregory's, KC, MBHS, CMS Grammar School, or Ibobi College like me. I'm speaking to you because I've had the benefit or the privilege of having schooled on 3 continents, in Nigeria, in the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. By far the most important success or critical factor to my success has been my time at Ibobi College. If you look at the state of education in Nigeria today, you will see that we inherited a common heritage that gives us a platform on which we can do so much more. Listen carefully for the next 15 minutes. The message that's coming your way has something for you to do. Nigeria will be great again, and we're counting on you.
Do you think it possible that the Almighty God could afford us the opportunity to teach this nation, to teach them what we were taught, what they taught us? Please listen. Dear friends, there are 2 definite streams of thought about Africa in general and Nigeria in particular that have occupied my attention for about 15 good years. And interestingly, one of them is reflected in issues concerning my alma mater, Government College Ibadan. In my case, like my father before me, that's where I went to college. And the reasons why it impacted our lives so much is one of the things I've been thinking about. Plus, the original intent of its founding fathers. I would be immensely honored if you could take out time to listen through this presentation. Formal European education was introduced into Nigeria in the 1840s to nurture qualitative African leadership for the future of the colony. 20 years after King's College was established, 3 similar public schools were founded in 1929. These schools were modeled after the public schools like Eton, Harrow, and Winchester in the UK. Now, the idea was to process raw Nigerian potentials into intellectual and moral excellencies of noble character, capable of critical thinking and other requisite skills that would be needed to steward the nation to great heights after the exit of colonialism. Now, visionary persons like Robert Fisher, the Anglican priest, V.B. Powell, the Oxonian, H.G. Fields, and a long list of determined educators agitated and battled the prevailing concepts of their era about the inferiority of blacks. They did this to set the ball in motion. King's College, 1909, predated government colleges in Ibadan, Umuahia, and in Zaria, Barewa College, of 1929. Now, prior to that, the missionaries had planted good seeds in CMS Lagos, 1859, Methodist Boy High School, 1878, Methodist Girls High School in 1879, Baptist Academy in 1885, St. John's School in Bida 1904, and then even St. Greg's 1928, and the Ibobi College in 1932, just to mention a few. It was projected that the products of these institutions would be the trailblazers of a progressive Nigeria. Look, the men who sacrificed gracefully to provide the streams of education believed that the schools would be the instruments that would promote the drive for the total civilization of Africa. They went to their graves smiling because they trusted that the days when blacks like Otta Benga, the pygmy from Congo, would be exhibited in zoological exhibitions alongside monkeys and orangutans. They believed that those days would come to an end permanently. Those good men believed that the brilliant light of education would defeat the darkness that had bound Africa for ages, but their inspirations, their aspirations did not quite yield the full harvest. Barewa College was practically the only school that succeeded in providing the quantum of leadership expected, and its contributions of 5 heads of states or presidents speaks for itself. You see, so much went wrong, and most of the products that were primed to steer the nation just never ended up in the key positions of authority that should have made that big difference. Now, looking around in modern Nigeria today, we can safely conclude that education has finally gone to the dogs. We were all tutored, and the meager fees and salaries of our tutors and the fees that our parents paid was definitely not the motivation that powered those teachers and missionaries of old. The best of private schools today charge such high fees for what we would have adjudged as substandard education, unfit for progress. Now, if we were to trace the greatest beneficiaries of what started in the 1840s, we would have to conclude at the end of the day that it's the United States of America, United Kingdom, the Emirates, and many foreign lands that ended up harvesting the vintage of the press because of the brain drain. Year after year now, whatever remains of the light that those seasoned educators seeded in Nigeria is being depleted because we have engaged in reverse gear the implementation of education policies for our nation, Nigeria, today. Even that little spark of hope that was lit by the later addition of unity colleges or unity schools was speedily extinguished and buried by the quota system blanket of mediocrity. Now, the strength and global reach of the Old Boys Association of our moribund schools are perhaps the only reminder of that education excellence that was once the hope of Nigeria. Look, all those nostalgic get-togethers that we stage across the world every now and then will ultimately go the same way as a stream that is cut off from its source, except something drastic happens. Please permit me at this time to opine that all of us in the diverse generations that were beneficiaries of the education legacy that started with CMS in 1859 and crossed through the King's College in 1909, the government colleges in Ibadan, in Umuahia, in Zaria, onwards, we must take some responsibility for this gross failure in Nigeria. The schools that transformed us were products of the sacrifices and the cranial labor of European stewards who went to their graves content that they did all they could. Whether by commission or omission, we cannot make the same claim, and it is a big weight because we could have made, or we should have made, a big difference in the history of Nigeria. Now, the second stream that I've considered for 15 years is centered on the plight of Africa and the leadership role that Nigeria could have supplied through our generations. Now, I want you to consider certain issues with me. Number one, 55 years after the colonials left Nigeria, we have continued to drink more tea, eat imported biscuits, wear suits, ties, stockings, plus wigs, to speak more phonetic grammar than the sum total of whatever was introduced by the colonials throughout their years of rule. Number two, when the colonials left us 55 plus years ago, could it be possible that they left an implant behind inside us that is producing these visible results from our subconscious mind? More so when we have continued to indoctrinate generation after generation to do the same things, even though some of them never saw the days of the white colonial master. Now, could it be possible that we too have been programmed to spend our lives running around in circles, not knowing that we are trying to be more British than the Briton or more American than the American, while we are distancing ourselves from the African heritage, and in the case of northern Nigeria, more Arabic than the Arab? Look, another question. Can an entire continent or race of persons be preconditioned to act in predictable ways and conform to expected results of prior experiments? Is it possible that there's been an application of Ivan Pavlov's theories of classical conditioning on the African race without its conscious knowledge or consent? Question number 4. Is there an educational system, does it exist, that can keep you learning without ever bringing you to the point of applying knowledge? Or do you think it's a coincidence that all that African nations do is to consume so much while producing very little with overqualified people in it? Could there be predictable patterns in our lives beyond tea drinking that are less noticeable results of that same preconditioning? Could the way we do politics, the way we do religion, the way we tend to be superstitious, suspicious, hyper-religious, divisive, disingenuous, and limited, could that also be a product of that same type of engineering? Number 6, can such a devaluation program or enslavement equation be self-replicating, passed from generation to generation, and yet be difficult to detect by those who are so programmed? Does history have any examples of such arcane engineering with that kind of transgenerational effect? To summarize my answer, the answer to all those probes, the questions, the 7, is a resounding yes. I've discovered this self-replicating cross-generation and difficult to detect program that can be used to enslave and devalue human worth on an industrial scale was the focus of my 15-year multidisciplinary research effort. Now, I call it the devil's arithmetic, and it is an application that can be traced through human history as far as ancient Egypt. It should not be surprising that you would hardly find it listed in the course of study of any school or college curriculum today. Tubman Goldie, for example, the designer of Nigeria, was a known student of this evil equation, and he applied it assiduously in the foundation of Nigeria. While Nigerians believe that foundations can correct themselves given time without any effort or engineering being applied. Let me give you a simple prognosis. Unless that program is reverse engineered, our nation and many nations of Africa are unlikely to ever make any progress until the darkness falls. Look, if we put 2 and 2 together, you will now understand why the labor of education in Nigeria could not provide the desired harvest despite its brilliance. Fortunately, the devil's arithmetic I have discovered can be reverse engineered. I call the solution the almighty formula. And we can now help future generations of Nigerians and Africa by extension to beat this sublime arcane equation by reviving, reorganizing, and loading our old boy networks with the simplified cure that can reverse engineer the enslavement program. By this, we can set the ball rolling towards a unified, peaceful, and progressive nation and continent. So what's the simple solution? I believe that the basic ingredients that can give our nation a boost is already resident inside many of us that drank from the streams of education that flowed through those schools we attended that are no more. However, there was one ingredient, a crucial ingredient, that was not put into the mix of what was given to us throughout our years in those schools. Now, there is a peculiar steward leadership program which we call Synapse, that our team of consultants drawn from across the world, at my insistence, worked to develop as a solution. Now, this program can be sandwiched into 4 1.5 units to equip us with that needed little extra on leadership, steward leadership. Just imagine what would happen if Synapse was injected into the bloodstream of all existing old boys networks to spur a synergy across all the associations that could never have been achieved before without the Synapse program and the addition of that leadership program. Now let's keep it in mind that we are dealing with an age bracket that is roughly spans between those in their late 30s, or let's say 35, to the 75-year-olds plus 80-year-olds who are still very active. Can you imagine the influence and the legacy we would leave behind for the generations that were not as fortunate as we were to attend the kind of schools that we attended? Now, a note of caution, let us bear it in mind that the schools we all attended, whether it was King's College, Iwobi, Greg's, Famous, Government College, Ibadan, or Uheli, was not really the issue. They were all just refinement, enlightenment, and transformative education programs paid for by the sacrifices of great Europeans that loved us enough to pay that price. Now, God willing, we too can give to our nation a present to generations that after we have exited this planet, it will keep working for long after we are gone. What do we need to do? All we have to do is to bring our little together, pull our resources together across the old boys networks, synergize, and fashion out a new program that can bring the same kind of light before the lights go out. The curtains are drawn and Nigeria begins its descent into darkness. This is something we can do. And all I say is that if we can add that steward leadership program into what was put inside all of us from the beginning, I can tell you that the difference will be clear.